What's up, team? Sean from Rest to Live here, and I'm going to do a really quick video because I think there's a lot of confusion around inflation, the CPI metrics, the news that's coming out of the Fed, the interest rate hikes, and I think the problem is too many folks are trying to approach this from an economic and financial understanding perspective, when the truth is we got to break this thing down and make it really, really simple to understand. So let's just jump in real quick here and not waste anyone's time. So when we think about why these numbers keep coming in poor, right? They're getting worse. Inflation is still high. The consumer price index is looking worse. We're looking at prices to increase for homes are still not going down. We're still seeing rents going up. We're still seeing food items. We're seeing everything going up, right? It's a total mess. And we keep thinking like, well, what the heck? Why do we keep raising interest rates when things are so bad? Why aren't things getting better? And I'm going to tell you the hard truth that I really think most people who talk about this don't actually understand. These are just tools to try to affect behavior. And the behavior is your behavior, my behavior. That's the reality of it. Okay. We talk about cycles, we talk about costs, we talk about the shifting economies, we talk about inflation and deflation, we talk about interest rate hikes, we talk about the Fed, we talk about money goes burr. Pause, take a breather. Okay. I'm going to talk about this the way I would explain it to my kids. When we think about inflation, when we think about monetary policy, when we think about all these things that are happening, it's designed to change your behavior, the consumer. The goal behind it is that at some point, pricing gets so ridiculous that you stop doing the things you're doing, and it causes, over time, it causes things to start to reverse. Like if everyone out there all at once said, you know what, I refuse to pay $3,000 for rent, no matter what. I just won't pay it. I'll let things fall into bankruptcy. I'll let people sue me because I can't do it. Okay, that's an extreme example, but I want to make that point. As long as people keep paying the ask, this is what's going to happen. I heard a funny story this morning, and it's going to segue into really giving an easy example. I heard someone telling a story that they were raising rents because when they bought their small multifamily, they had to pay so much more because of the high interest rates. And the conversation was like, well, what do you expect me to do? I have to pay more. Well, you bought a business, whether it's a multifamily or a pizza shop, you bought that business, okay? It's on you to figure out how to do it, and you shouldn't have started that business if it didn't make sense to do so. So we're still seeing really that top end effect of, well, this is what I have to do, and they're going to find a way to get someone in there. But in other areas, we're going to see change faster. So I want to give you an example that I think will be really easy to understand. If you go to the doctors and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Doctor, I would like to lose some weight. But the thing is, I really like to eat. I like to eat really bad things, right? I want to eat candy. I want to eat pizza. I want to eat, tons of soda. The doctor can go in and say to you, listen, here's the deal. Your health insurance is going to go up because you're so out of shape. It's going to cost more to get life insurance, right? Like you're not going to lose weight until you start cutting back those calories. And ultimately, they can tell you that if you cut the calories, you'll be healthier, you'll live longer, right? If you give up soda and you give up the candy and all this other stuff, your blood pressure will go down, right? Your cholesterol will go down if you eat healthier foods. And you know all these facts, right? But at the end of the day, you're like, well, I still want to eat these really bad things. This is exactly what Powell is doing. Powell is the doctor of the economy. He only has the ability to tell us, like, hey, look, you guys are still paying $4 for a can of Pepsi and $5 at the pump and $3,000 for rent, and you're not putting money away. You're not taking advantage of these really high interest rates. We can blame Powell and we can blame the Fed and we can blame whatever whatever we want. But the reality is, until we stop participating, it's not going to have the desired effect. The reason they raise those rates in its most basic, simple term is to get you to stop spending and start saving. Because if you can earn 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% interest on your money, in the past, historically, people would say, well, I'm not going to take that vacation. I'm not going to buy that new car. I'm not going to go out to eat 5 nights a week. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that money away and let that money grow because the interest rates are now worth it for me. This time around, things are taking a little bit longer to take action or take hold within our economy. But ultimately, this is going to happen, and this is going to be the shift that changes. People are going to look at home prices and say, look, flat out, I cannot afford it unless this price comes down to $300,000, $400,000. And they're going to look at cars and say, look, I am going to keep fixing my car because I can't buy a new car if it's going to cost me $80,000 and have a relatively high interest rate on it. And it takes time for these things to happen. You have to remember that although we keep wondering why it's getting worse and why it isn't getting better, well, people are still buying houses and they're still buying cars and they're still going out to eat 5, 6 nights a week. When everyone starts to cut their prices and cut their spending, we start to reach that equilibrium, right? Restaurants have to lower their prices back down. Maybe they have to offer, half-priced meals on Sundays. The car dealerships have to start offering more discounts, larger discounts, and lowering of their prices. This is both from the manufacturer and from the distribution perspective, right? The local retail car dealerships. We're looking at other things as well, like these home sellers. We know it's painful to lower the price of your home, especially when 6 months ago you could have made a lot more money. But eventually, if you want to sell that home, you're going to have no choice but to lower that price down to put it into an affordable range where more of the people who are out and buying can actually afford what you're selling. Additionally, and this is a big one too, that's going to have probably the hardest hit but not be seen by so many people, is when we think about the area of rental properties. Look, there is a point where people simply do not earn enough money to pay the rents that are being asked and still feed and clothe their children, take care of their bills, have health insurance. So although there's a lot of pain in the interim, these things will eventually come down. It will have to happen, and it's part of a known cycle. The thing with cycles is it's not a question of whether they're going to happen or not. The question is how long and when. And the truth is we don't know. This could be another long time till we see things really get where they need to be. But we're not going to see a stoppage in interest rates rising until we start to shift from spending on all these expensive things, which is what's affecting our consumer price index, right? We have to get inflation under control by not participating in inflation. If I can get a cup of water from my sink versus going and buying, I don't know, a soda or a Red Bull or a Gatorade or whatever the case might be, that's going to be $3 or $4 for that bottle or can, those feel like little tiny things. But if all of a sudden a million people are like, you know what, I'm not buying $4 Pepsis, they're going to start just getting it from the tap or whatever they get it cheaper. And this is where we start to see shifts into store name brands. We start to see the shift into the Walmarts from the Whole Foods, right? We start to look at like the BJ's and the Costco's getting business back from the high-end boutique retailers. This is a bit of an aside, but I was dropping my son off for a sporting event last night, and the only place near me was like a local, like a little like a food shop, but kind of a high end. I was just literally going in to grab like a bottle of water. But while I was there, I actually was walking around and I was looking at the prices and just tallying up some numbers in my head. And I was thinking, like, for me to essentially do like a small little grocery shopping trip in that store, I would have spent essentially, a couple of $100 for really nothing. And those are the moments where that's the peak, right? Is when we start seeing specialty, high-end, expensive stores popping up more and more. That's a peak of an economy that was doing great and is no longer there. And those are the ones that are going to get hurt the worst. They've got premium locations, they've got high prices, they've got high rent, they're in brand new buildings, all these kinds of things. And the stuff that we also don't see from the retail side is you're going to see more and more commercial customers looking to restructure or break their contracts, looking for better rates, threatening to leave. Brokers are going to be representing clients to bring them to the locations that are going to give them the best rates as well. So when you take this all into the aggregate, you have to understand that all of these things that are happening, the increasing rates, the printing money, the the tone coming from the Fed and from sort of that side of our government, the design of it is to get you to change your behavior. And if people aren't changing their behavior, inflation simply cannot be affected at scale. Raising rates to a point where they are now, and very likely going to be raised again, almost 100%, I'd say, of like a 75 basis point raise or even more. At some point, you're gonna have to cut the eating out. You're gonna have to cut the useless car rides to save on gas. You're gonna have to cut the buying Pepsis at the convenience store and buy something in bulk instead. That's how we start to flip things over into getting away from these high rates, these high inflation numbers, these high prices. So that's it. I just want to break it down really simple. Everyone is talking about the numbers and where they were and where they're going. I don't think a lot of people really understand what the numbers mean. And frankly, who cares what the numbers are? For me, it's as simple as which part of the cycle are we in? Are we still inflating or are we starting to deflate? Well, we're clearly still inflating. So until we pass the break even point where we're getting back to even or even coming down, rates are going to keep rising. And if rates keep rising, it's going to keep creating pressure in the markets. And if pressure in the markets keeps happening, more and more people are going to feel more pain financially. So it's behavior, it's your behavior, it's the consumer's behavior. That's the takeaway. Okay. So, team, thanks so much for listening. My goal is to try to make these things easy, not more complex. There's plenty of places you can go to get every single breakdown of every single number. But the truth is, it's sort of a meaningless thing to understand in a lot of ways. I'm not saying you should know what it stands for or what they mean. But what I'm saying is knowing why they exist, what their purpose is, and then how it can affect the way you go about your business is really important to understand. Like if I was going to go out today and start a new business or look for a new investment, I'm not looking to invest in high-end grocery stores or high-end steak houses or luxury condos on the beach right now. I'm looking at affordable housing. I'm looking at local grocers that offer good competitive rates to their customers. I'm looking for quick serve restaurants at scale that offer a lower price for a faster service and still good quality food. Like those are the kind of opportunities I'm paying attention to, where the masses are naturally going to end up meeting when we get back to somewhat of a normalcy in our economy here. So that's it, team. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, I appreciate you. The comments have been so nice lately. Really appreciate the time. I think everyone who watches this channel, I really think the takeaway is that this is a really good, reasonable group of folks who are trying to learn how to better their lives, build more wealth, but at the same time, do so in a way where they're not going all out. They're not blowing it on random plays. So keep doing the things that make sense. Keep being safe. Keep looking for areas to hedge your bets. Do the things that make sense for you with an eye towards an economy that's designed around controlling your behavior. So with that, team, thanks so much. Hope you have a good week, and we'll see you later. Thanks, everybody.